Why did you help my son? Olivia frowned at the man standing in her doorway. His voice was calm, almost accusing, but his sharp blue eyes held something deeper, curiosity, maybe even suspicion. Rain dripped from his sleek black coat, the scent of damp earth filling the air between them. I don't understand, she said cautiously. Ethan Callahan studied her, his gaze unwavering. People don't do things for nothing. Olivia let out a small, breathy laugh, crossing her arms. Are you always this cynical? Instead of answering, he reached into his pocket and placed a thick envelope on the small table beside her. I don't believe in debts going unpaid, he said. Whether you realize it or not, Olivia, you did something for me. And I always return the favor. Her heart pounded as she looked from the envelope back to him. Who was this man? And why did it feel like her life had just taken a turn she couldn't yet see? Olivia wiped the sweat from her forehead, sighing as she picked up a towel to clean the last table by the window. It had been an exhausting day, 2 back-to-back shifts with barely a break in between. But she wasn't one to complain. Hard work had been a part of her life for as long as she could remember. Growing up in a small apartment with her mother, she had learned early on that kindness cost nothing but could change everything. Her mother, a gentle woman with a warm smile, had always said, "The world can be cruel, Olivia, but never let it make you hard. A kind heart is more precious than gold." But life had taken her mother too soon. Cancer had stolen her away when Olivia was just 17, leaving her to navigate the world alone. Since then, she had worked tirelessly, waitressing, cleaning, doing whatever it took to survive. Even on days like today, when exhaustion made her bones ache, she pushed through, because giving up was never an option. With a tired but determined sigh, Olivia approached the last table, wiping the surface with slow, deliberate strokes. The rain outside had picked up, tapping gently against the cafe windows. She barely noticed it at first, until something caught her eye. Through the rain-speckled glass, a small figure sat outside in a wheelchair, barely visible beneath the glow of a nearby street lamp. Olivia's heart clenched. The child, no older than 10, was huddled against the cold, his thin jacket no match for the chilly evening breeze. His tiny hands gripped the wheels of his chair. Concern gripped her instantly. What was he doing out there alone? Was someone with him? Without. She rushed outside, the cold rain biting at her skin. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently, crouching beside him. "What are you doing out here all alone?" The boy lifted his head, his wide blue eyes filled with uncertainty. I'm waiting for someone," he murmured, his voice barely louder than the rain falling around them. Her brows knitted together as she glanced around, nothing but empty street. No sign of a parent or guardian. "Well, you can't stay out here like this," she said, offering him a reassuring smile. "Come inside where it's warm, okay?" Olivia returned to the table a few minutes later, carefully balancing a steaming cup of hot chocolate and a plate of freshly baked muffins. She set them down in front of Oliver, her warm smile never fading. "Here you go, buddy. Made with extra chocolate, just the way I like it," she said playfully. Oliver eagerly took a sip, his eyes lighting up as the warmth spread through him. "This is the best hot chocolate I've ever had," he exclaimed, wiping a bit of foam from his lip. Olivia laughed. "Well, I'll have to tell my boss to put Oliver's favorites on the menu, then." As he nibbled on the muffin, their conversation flowed naturally. They talked about everything, his favorite superhero, her most embarrassing moment as a waitress, and even a few fun riddles. "What has hands but can't clap?" Oliver asked, his blue eyes twinkling with excitement. Olivia tapped her chin dramatically. A very shy octopus?" Oliver giggled. "No. A clock." "Oh, I was so close," she said, feigning disappointment. For the first time in a long while, Oliver felt like a regular kid, laughing and enjoying the simple moment. Neither of them noticed the sleek, black luxury car parked across the street. Inside, behind the tinted windows, a man sat in silence, his sharp grey eyes fixed on the scene unfolding before him. Ethan Callahan had come to pick up his son. But what he saw instead stopped him in his tracks. His son, his usually quiet, guarded boy, was laughing, truly laughing, with a complete stranger. And in that moment, he knew he had to find out more about the woman who had just unknowingly captured his attention. Ethan Callahan had seen many things in his life, boardrooms filled with powerful executives, million-dollar deals being signed, entire companies rising and falling at his command. But nothing had ever shaken him quite like the sight before him now. From the driver's seat of his black luxury car, he watched through the rain-speckled windshield as Oliver laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long while. The boy's head tilted back slightly, his eyes sparkling as he chatted with the waitress, who leaned in with an amused grin. She had no idea who Oliver was, no idea whose son she was entertaining. And yet, she had taken the time to care for him like no one else had. Ethan exhaled slowly, gripping the steering wheel. He had seen when she wheeled Oliver inside, concern written all over her face. He had watched as she placed a warm meal in front of him, staying by his side rather than rushing off to the next customer. She didn't treat him like a fragile responsibility, she treated him like a kid. Ethan wasn't supposed to be here. Oliver's nurse, Martha, had always handled school pickups. But last night, she had received an unexpected call. Her father had fallen seriously ill. She had no choice but to leave immediately. Ethan had understood, of course. He had even insisted she go, offering to cover any expenses. But that left him with a new challenge, taking care of Oliver himself. His morning had already been packed with back-to-back meetings, and he had planned for his secretary to pick Oliver up. Then, another complication, her car broke down just as she was leaving. With no other choice, Ethan had cancelled an important call, driven across town, and arrived only to find his son with a complete stranger. And yet, as he watched Oliver smiling brighter than he had in months, Ethan couldn't bring himself to be angry. Instead, he found himself wondering. Who was this woman? Just as Ethan was about to step out of the car, he noticed another vehicle pulling up across the street. His secretary, Lisa, had finally arrived. Exhaling, he reached for his phone and dialed her number. "She's inside with Oliver," he said the moment she picked up. "Go in and get him." Lisa, ever efficient, responded with a quick, "On it, sir," before stepping out of her car and hurrying toward the cafe. Inside, Olivia was in the middle of another riddle when the door swung open. She glanced up to see a well-dressed woman scanning the room before her eyes landed on Oliver. "You must be Oliver," Lisa said warmly, crouching down to his level. "Your dad sent me to pick you up." Olivia's brows furrowed slightly. "You know this lady, Ollie?" she asked, her protective instincts kicking in. Oliver nodded. "Yeah. She works with my dad." That was enough for Olivia to relax. "All right, kiddo. Looks like your ride's here." She ruffled his curls before standing up. "Come back anytime, okay? We've got plenty more riddles to solve." Oliver grinned. "I will." Lisa gently took the handles of his wheelchair and started toward the door. But before they left, Oliver turned back to Olivia. "Thanks for the hot chocolate. It really was the best." Olivia chuckled. "I'll hold you to that, buddy." Ethan came down from his car to help Oliver into the back seat, fastening his seatbelt securely before driving away. Olivia had shown his son kindness without hesitation. She hadn't known who Oliver was, hadn't expected anything in return. Most people, once they realized Oliver was his son, became overly polite, careful with their words, eager to impress. But Olivia had just been herself. She had knelt in the rain for a child she didn't know. She had fed him, talked to him, made him laugh, not because of who he was, but because she genuinely cared. As soon as Oliver settled into the car, his face lit up with excitement. "Dad, you should have seen her. Olivia was so nice to me. She didn't treat me like I was different or like she felt sorry for me. She was just cool." Ethan, still lost in thought about the scene he had witnessed, glanced at his son through the rearview mirror. The pure joy in Oliver's voice made something tighten in his chest. "Yeah?" Ethan said with a small smile as he reached back to ruffle his son's curls. "She must be pretty special to impress you that much." "She is," Oliver insisted. "And she makes the best hot chocolate. Can we go back sometime?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, his gaze drifted to the road ahead as he reflected on the day. At 38, Ethan Callahan was one of the most powerful businessmen in the country. As the CEO of Callahan Enterprises, a multinational conglomerate with investments in real estate, technology, and luxury brands, he was a man known for his sharp mind, ruthless business tactics, and relentless drive. His days were filled with high-stakes deals, negotiations, and responsibilities that few could handle. But no amount of business success had ever prepared him for fatherhood, especially not fatherhood under these circumstances. Oliver had been diagnosed with a rare neuromuscular disorder at the age of 4. The condition had gradually weakened his muscles, making it impossible for him to walk on his own. Doctors had offered treatments, therapies, and medical solutions, but there had never been a cure. Ethan had spent years throwing money at the best specialists, hoping for a miracle. But eventually, he had to accept the truth: this was Oliver's reality. And the guilt of not being able to fix it had weighed on him ever since. His work had always been his escape. It was easier to focus on deals and acquisitions than to face the fear of failing his son. That was why he had hired the best caregivers, the best private nurses, the best everything, to make sure Oliver never felt neglected. But today had been a wake-up call. Oliver had been happier with a stranger in a cafe than he had been in a long time. And Ethan couldn't ignore the nagging thought in the back of his mind. Maybe, for once, money wasn't the answer. Maybe what Oliver truly needed was something Ethan himself had been avoiding: real connection. Ethan sat in his home office, staring at his laptop screen long after his secretary's email had arrived. The subject line was simple: information on Olivia Hart. He had told Lisa to find out everything she could about the woman who had unknowingly captured his son's heart in a single afternoon. And, as always, Lisa had delivered. Olivia Hart. 26 years old. Born and raised in the city. She had a degree in hospitality management but had struggled to find stable work in her field. After bouncing between temporary jobs, she had settled for working as a waitress at the little cafe 2 years ago. No criminal record, no family scandals, just an ordinary woman trying to make ends meet. But there was something about her that wasn't ordinary at all. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He had met countless people in his life: business elites, politicians, celebrities. People who would do anything to get in his good graces. Yet, here was Olivia, someone who had no idea who he was and had still shown his son more kindness than most people ever had. That was rare. And it was something he wasn't willing to ignore. His eyes flicked back to the report. Job hunting. So she hadn't always planned to be a waitress. She had dreams beyond that cafe. Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He wasn't sure what he was going to do yet, but one thing was certain: he needed to see her again. Not just to thank her, but to understand why she had made such an impact on Oliver. And maybe, just maybe, to find out why he couldn't get her out of his head. Tomorrow, he would visit her. The next morning, Ethan grabbed his car keys and slid into the driver's seat, his mind set on one thing: seeing Olivia Hart again. According to the information Lisa had gathered, today was her day off. That meant she would be home, and he wouldn't have to track her down at the cafe. It was unusual for him to make a visit like this, but something deep inside told him he needed to. 15 minutes later, he pulled up outside a modest apartment complex. It wasn't in the worst part of town, but it wasn't the best either. The building was old, with peeling paint and rusted balcony railings. It was clear that Olivia wasn't living a life of luxury, but somehow, that only reinforced what he already knew: she was a woman who worked hard and expected nothing in return. Ethan stepped out of his sleek, black luxury car, feeling out of place for the first time in years. He walked up the narrow staircase and knocked firmly on her door. A few seconds later, it creaked open, and Olivia appeared, dressed casually in a soft sweater and leggings, her hair slightly tousled as if she had just woken up. She blinked, her brows knitting together in confusion as she took in the sight of the tall, well-dressed man standing at her doorstep. Can I help you?" she asked hesitantly. Ethan gave a small smile. "I'm Ethan. Oliver's father." The moment recognition flashed in her eyes, her posture relaxed, and she let out a breath. "Oh. Ollie's dad," she said, smiling warmly. "Is he okay?" Ethan's eyes flickered with something unreadable as he noticed how naturally she had already given his son a nickname. Ollie. It was something only those close to him used, and yet, Olivia said it so effortlessly. Yes, he assured her. He's perfectly fine. He hesitated for a brief moment before continuing. I wanted to thank you for what you did yesterday. Olivia tilted her head. What do you mean? I was watching from my car when you wheeled him inside and fed him. You didn't know who he was, yet you treated him with kindness. She smiled, a softness in her eyes. You don't have to thank me for that. Kindness isn't something you do expecting rewards, it's just the right thing to do. Ethan let her words settle in his mind. People rarely did things without expecting something in return. But Olivia had. Taking a deep breath, he decided to get to the real reason for his visit. I want to offer you something, he said carefully. An opportunity that could change your life. Olivia blinked. Excuse me? Ethan looked at her intently. Come work for me. Not as a waitress, but as Oliver's personal companion. You'd help care for him, be his friend, and travel with him when needed. I can offer you a better salary, stability, and a future beyond that cafe. Her lips parted in shock. You want to hire me? Yes. His voice was firm. You made my son happy in a way I haven't seen in a long time. And I'll do anything to see that joy in his eyes again. For a moment, Olivia just stared at him, her mind racing. She had never expected a simple act of kindness to lead to something like this. Olivia sat in silence for a moment, absorbing Ethan's words. She had spent years giving, helping friends, supporting family, extending kindness wherever she could. She had never expected anything in return, but more often than not, people had taken advantage of her generosity. Some had even dismissed it as weakness. Yet here was a man, a billionaire, no less, who barely knew her, offering to change her life simply because she had done something she considered ordinary. She had only wheeled Oliver inside, given him something warm to eat, and made him feel comfortable. That was all. And yet, to Ethan, it had been something extraordinary. She swallowed the lump in her throat and nodded. Okay. I will. Thank you, sir. Ethan didn't hesitate. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her an envelope. I had this prepared just in case you agreed, he said. Inside, you'll find all the details you need, your salary, benefits, and the terms of your employment. You can take your time to read through it. Olivia held the envelope in her hands, her fingers brushing over the smooth paper. This was real. Her life was about to change. It didn't take long for Olivia to become a central part of Oliver's world. She moved into the Callahan estate, living in a separate guest suite near Oliver's room. Oliver, once reserved and often glued to his tablet or books, now lit up whenever Olivia entered the room. He had something to look forward to every day. Ethan leaned against the doorway, watching them with an amused expression. It was strange, watching his son interact with someone so naturally. Oliver had always been well taken care of, but there was something different about the way he was with Olivia. It was effortless. And Ethan knew, without a doubt, that hiring Olivia had been the best decision he had ever made. Oliver had never been one for grand birthday celebrations. In the past, his birthdays had always been small, just him, his dad, and a few close family friends. And this year, he had already decided he didn't want one at all. But Olivia had other plans. When she learned that his birthday was coming up in a few weeks, she couldn't accept the idea of letting the day pass by unnoticed. Oliver deserved to be celebrated. And more than that, she wanted to make his day truly special, something that would touch his heart in a way no fancy party ever could. So, she planned something different. Instead of a lavish celebration filled with extravagant gifts and high-society guests, Olivia reached out to a local center that supported underprivileged and disabled children. She arranged for them to be part of the celebration, knowing how much joy Oliver would find in connecting with kids who faced challenges like his own. Ethan had been skeptical at first, but when he saw the way Olivia's eyes sparkled with excitement as she explained her plan, he found himself agreeing. And when the big day arrived, it was nothing short of magical. The Callahan estate's grand backyard was transformed into a wonderland of laughter, games, and excitement. Children who had never seen a birthday cake that big before clapped in amazement. There were balloons, music, and a sense of warmth that filled the air. Oliver, who had always kept to himself at social events, was right in the center of it all, smiling, laughing, and sharing stories with the other kids. He played games, helped cut the cake, and even cracked jokes that had the other children giggling. Ethan stood at the sidelines, watching it all unfold. His son was happy. Really, truly happy. And Olivia had made this happen. As the evening came to an end, Oliver rolled up to Olivia, his eyes shining with emotion. "This was the best birthday ever," he said softly. Olivia knelt beside him, resting a hand on his. "I'm glad you liked it, Ollie." He nodded. "I did. More than you know." Later that night, long after the last guest had left and the house had quieted down, Oliver wheeled himself into his father's bedroom. Ethan, who had been reading over some emails, looked up in surprise. "Can't sleep?" he asked, closing his laptop and moving closer. Oliver hesitated before speaking. "Dad, can I talk to you?" "Of course." Ethan sat at the edge of the bed, giving his son his full attention. Oliver took a deep breath. "I want to start a foundation." Ethan blinked. Of all the things he had expected his son to say, this wasn't one of them. "A foundation?" Oliver nodded, his expression serious. "For kids like me. And for kids who don't have much. Today, I saw how happy they were, just to have a cake, to play, to feel special. I want to do that for them all the time, not just on my birthday." Ethan studied his son, feeling a wave of pride and something else, something deeper. His son wasn't just thinking about himself. He was thinking about how to make a difference. And he knew exactly where that inspiration had come. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more stories. Thanks for watching.